Hey y'all, good evening. My name is Allison, and I just am so excited that y'all are going to spend a little bit of time with me tonight. And we're going to talk about listening, asking questions, talking about how to keep that conversation going, whether that's with people that you're talking to in general about products. Maybe it's customers you already have, and you're checking in with them. Maybe you're helping them troubleshoot. And it's also going to talk a little bit about recruiting and questions that you can ask there. Because I feel like a lot of us get stuck. I know I did when I was first starting. I get stuck in, how's it going? And then they just kind of sit there like, well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so when you learn to ask really good questions, you can better help the people that you're talking to, and you can better understand where they're coming from and what their needs are and how we can meet their needs and solve their problems, because that's what we do, right? So I want to share Kim. Yeah, she says, OMG, that was me. Yes, totally. And I think we all go through that because you get stuck and then you go, well, I don't really know what to ask now. So hopefully this will be really helpful for you. I'm going to share my screen and I want to play. Okay, there we go. I want to play this video by Simon Sinek. I never know if I'm saying his name right, but I think I am. I don't know. We're going to go with it. The Art of Listening, and it is really, really cool. So hopefully y'all can hear this okay.
So listening is not the act of hearing the words spoken. It is the art of understanding the meaning behind those words. When people say you're not listening to me and we simply parrot back the words that they were said, congratulations, your ears work. That is the act of listening. But the art of listening is creating an environment in which the other person feels heard. Now you notice what I said there. The other person, and I used an emotional word, feels, right? I don't want to know that you've heard the words. I want to feel heard, feel seen. I want to feel understood. And that is a learnable, practicable skill. So there are many parts of it. It's things like replacing judgment with curiosity, right? That's a hard thing to do. We're a pretty judgy group, right? To be curious why someone has a point of view. It's creating a safe space for someone to, as my friend Dia Khan calls it, empty the bucket. So even if we find what they're saying just reprehensible, right? You're never going to be able to actually have dialogue until at least one of the parties gets the opportunity to say everything without judgment. And as she calls it, emptying the bucket. And once somebody feels like they've completely said everything, then they're more apt to listen to you. But usually what we do is we defend, or we litigate, or we interrupt. We point out flaws in logic, which is just frustrating. And when you point out some flaws in somebody's logic, because we're all imperfect when we speak, and we all choose the wrong words at various times. And that's not what I meant. You know what I meant is what we have to say. Well, what if you know what you meant? Why don't you say what you can see how this spirals. But it's things like when somebody says something, and there's really easy ways to do it. Things like, go on, tell me more. What else? And we keep talking. And you go quiet and feel the space. Tell me more. Go on. And eventually, it's all out. And then there's a safe space for you to respond and express yourself in a constructive way. But that's correct. We do not teach listening, and listening is the way to create to build trust with someone. You make someone feel heard, they'll trust you. It is the way to find common ground in opposition, in simple cases in business, but in more complicated cases in national politics or in global politics or in war. Why do William Ury, who wrote Getting to Yes, he talks about the same thing. He goes, we have talk shows, but we don't have listen shows. He says we have peace talks, but what we really need is peace listens. And he, who's been at the table at the highest levels of peace negotiations, he said people show up and start demanding what they want, and that's how the negotiations begin. Nobody starts by saying, so tell me why you came here. There's a great documentary that I recommend to learn this. It's called White Right, Meeting the Enemy by Dia Khan. In a nutshell, Dia is a Muslim woman living in the UK who was trolled by white supremacists. to the point where the police got involved because her life was at risk. They told her stay away from open windows. That's how bad it got. The way Dia responded was by moving to the United States and going to meet the white supremacists. And she brought her cameras. I mean, you can see it all happen in this documentary. And basically, she gave them a safe space to feel heard. Now, that sounds mad. Like, why should she give them a safe space to feel heard? They should give her a safe space. Yeah, fine, good. You know, like, it's never going to happen. Dia sits down with these white supremacists and she gives them a safe space to feel heard. It's extreme listening. And I say it's extreme because, I mean, they hate her, you know? They don't just disagree with her. They want her off the planet. And she lets them empty their bucket, as she calls it. And then conversation begins. And because they feel heard, they start to trust her. And as they start to trust her, she becomes a friend. And then what it creates this paradox where I'm supposed to hate this woman, but I trust her and consider her a friend. And what you see is one by one, these white supremacists, these diehard white supremacists, start dropping out of the movement because they can no longer reconcile their beliefs with reality. And if it can happen in this extreme environment, then it can happen anywhere. And all that is required for us to cross political divides or disagreements at work and things like that is one of the parties has to learn how to listen. It doesn't even require both parties to learn the skill. That's the amazing thing. And it is one of the most remarkable skills that anyone can learn, the power of listening. Yeah. So the documentary is a great extreme example of what it can do.
Oh gosh, hang on. Now it's like still going. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I forgot to hit stop before I kept going. I absolutely loved his perspective there and the emphasis on listening. But I think where the issue comes in when you're starting and you're asking those first questions like, how's it going? How are your products doing? How are you feeling? Is nobody's talking because they don't really know what to say. So how can we be a good listener, right? How can we find out how we can help them better if we can't get the dialogue going, if we can't continue a conversation, then we're not able to really be a good listener and figure out how we can help them. So, I mean, people love to talk, right? Like they want to talk about themselves. They want to give their opinions. They want to do all the things. And that includes us, y'all. I know I'm the same way. I feel like when somebody's telling me something, I have to fight the urge to just give them my own story that relates, because for me, I feel like I can relate to them that way, but they don't want to hear that. They just want to know that I heard them. They want to feel heard. So we have to fight that urge that wants us to, talk and share and give the information and tell them all the things. Because when you're new, especially, like, you're excited, right? You just found this stuff and it works great and you're amazed and you're like feeling so good and you want to tell everybody about it, right? But what we really want to do is get excited and ask questions and find out how we can help people with the products and the opportunity that we have. So got to get out of that wanting to talk phase and practice listening and practice asking the good questions that get that conversation going. So let's see, I'm catching a glare on my notepad here. There we go. So let's say we're going to talk about it in a couple different aspects. So it's going to be like when you're talking to potentials about product stuff or whatever, when you're talking to customers and troubleshooting, and then when you're talking about recruiting. So let's say someone just reaches out after you post something and says, well, what's Plexus? And then you can give them a really basic answer. You don't want to not answer their questions, but you always want to have something else to continue the conversation, right? So you might give them the answer. Well, it's, a company that focuses on blood sugar balance, gut health, inflammation reduction, and it's all natural plant-based supplements. It's really awesome. You don't just stop. You don't want to just answer the question and stop. You want to turn around and go, what kind of goals do you have for your health? Or what interested you? What was it in my post that stood out to you? And let them answer that. You're looking for these these follow-up questions. Maybe their question was, well, how much is it? Well, you don't want to just necessarily go, oh, well, it's 109 for a welcome pack and 129, and you can go on all the details, right? But you haven't given them any value. You haven't asked them any questions. So that is where we can tend to feel salesy in those conversations if we're just regurgitating the information, even though that's what they asked. They don't want to hear it like that because that feels salesy when they say, how much is it? And you're like, oh, it's this much and this much, and you can save that. And if you can't, and people are throwing out, okay, then you can get your products paid for. And that's great. But we have to figure out a different way to do it and come at it from a different angle so that we're sharing the information at a rate that they're understanding it and they're feeling heard, like he was talking about in the video, and they're feeling like there's value to it before you start giving them information about cost. So, maybe they say, how much is it? And you're like, well, it's usually, anywhere from like $1 to $4 or $5 a day, but it just really depends on the products that you're using. What kind of health goals do you have? Do you see how I just turn around and go back to the conversation and the question again? Because we want to ask them what they're dealing with. We want to ask them what they need so that we can meet that need and we can help solve their problems. So you want to get more information. You want to keep the conversation going. And you want to do that with, the 5 W's and the H, just like we learned back in school. I don't even know if they're still teaching that in school right now, but you've got your, who, what, where, when, why, and then how, right? So you want to use those when you're doing follow-up questions. What kind of symptoms were you having? How long have you been feeling like this? Do you have any diagnoses? You can also do, I skipped ahead with the do, but you can use the be or do questions. So you can use am, is, are, was, were, any of the being questions. Let's see. Are you happy with your energy levels? Do you feel like you sleep well? Were you ever at a point where you, just felt tired all the time? You could ask them any kind of question, but if you're thinking about those words, it helps kind of formulate them so that it encourages an answer and it encourages a conversation instead of yes or no questions. So the do, you can do like do, does, did, things like that when we're following up. Oh, I think I just went the wrong way. So basically, the fewer words that you're using and the more listening that you're doing, the more you're piquing people's interest. They can hear you talking all day long, but unless you've asked them some really good questions, do you really know what it is that they need to hear? Right? If they're looking for something specific and they might not know what question to ask you because they just like, I don't know what this is. But you don't know what they're dealing with unless you ask. So answer with a few words, ask them these good questions. Tell them you're reaching out because you value their opinion on something, and then ask them one of those questions. Let's see. And then when moving into like customer care, troubleshooting, things like that, I think this is where I got the most tripped up when I was first starting, because I would just ask them how their products are going. How are they feeling? But I found that a lot of people really just didn't know. They didn't know what to look for. They didn't know if their products were doing anything or not, because I wasn't asking the right questions, or they would be like, fine, everything's fine. And then they'd quit. They'd turn off their subscription. They'd stop talking to me, whatever. And I'm like, I don't really understand. And then later, I might find out that they were having allergy issues, or maybe they, had an eczema flare up or something. And because I wasn't asking the right question, they didn't know to tell me that. And so there was no way for me to help them with that problem or to explain to them what was going on, right? So when we're reaching out with customer care, we want to do things like ask them, hey, have you been consistent with your products every day? Give them some basic yes or no. We don't want to like give them a full-blown open-ended question every single time, right? We do want some basics, but they need to be very pointed. Have you noticed a difference in the way that you're feeling? Maybe your energy. Thanks, Anne. See you later. Maybe your energy, maybe your sleep. Those are usually the first things that people notice. Have you noticed a difference? So you want to ask them those questions and then the follow-up questions. And they're like, no, I haven't really noticed a difference. Okay. Have you been getting in all your water? Have you been consistent on your products? Are you using the bathroom regularly? All of these types of troubleshooting questions, and I've got a little listing of them here that I can drop in the chat later. Are you going to the bathroom regularly? What are you doing to help your body detox? So you're asking them very specifically, and they might not know. They're like, oh, I don't know. What do I need to do to detox? Well, you can add some lemon to your water. You can take Epsom salt baths. You could do dry brushing. There's all of these things. But you don't even want to necessarily answer with a whole bunch of stuff. You can just give them the basics instead of explaining what dry brushing is and why an Epsom salt bath is good. Just say, there's a couple options like this. I'm going to go in our group and I'm going to tag you in a post on detox. And I'm going to let you know, how that can help. And then follow back up with them. Hey, did you get a chance to read that? And which of those things sounds like it might help you the most? And listen to what they're saying. Find out if they're taking medications, because a lot of times that changes things with the body, right? And again, find out what their goals are. Do you feel like we're heading in the right direction? Are we meeting your goals? Are we going in the right direction? Sometimes other things are happening and you don't know that it doesn't have anything to do with their products. Sometimes they're sick in another way. Like I had one lady who was doing a reset and she's like, I've had the worst headache. Well, go figure. 2 days after the reset, she found out she had COVID. So she had this horrible headache, which had probably nothing to do with the reset because it continued after she stopped. And, you just never know. So sometimes there's other things going on and when we just need time. But when we're talking to them about that and we're asking all of these questions and we're really listening to their answers and helping solve problems with and without plexus. And I feel like that's a really important thing to throw in is when I'm asking them things, it's not always plexus related. They need to know that you value their health. Are you drinking enough water? Are you going to the bathroom? Like, yes, those are sort of plexus related, but it's not like, hey, do you drink your Slim every day? You want to make sure that they're understanding that this is a whole health thing. What kinds of foods are they eating? Have they noticed a difference in bloating when they eat different foods? Sometimes, when you start to heal your gut, your body starts to tell you exactly what it wants you to eat and what it doesn't. And it's easier to tell. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that, but I just want you to focus on those 5 W's and the H, right? The right questions to ask so that people are talking, so that they're willing to communicate with you. Because they might think everything's fine. And then when you ask them if they're going to the bathroom every day, they're like, oh, well, no, I'm only going every 2 or 3 days. Okay, well, I'm glad that, maybe that's more than they were going. I'm glad that it's a little more consistent. Let's do this to increase that. And then we'll follow back up in a few days. Have you noticed any other issues because you weren't using the bathroom regularly? Have you noticed anything? Get them talking about things and asking those good questions. I'm going to move on to recruiting things because it just was like, hey, you have 10 minutes left. I don't want to run out of time. So when you're talking about recruiting, I watched a video from Christy White. And if y'all have not seen any of her stuff, she's amazing. She literally started Plexus, had 17 cents left in her bank account and couldn't order her welcome pack until she had people join with her. And lived in a little teeny town, and she's a diamond and she's built up this amazing business. So she's awesome. And she was talking about things that she does, like, for example, out in public, if she hears someone complaining about being tired or trying to lose weight or they work too much. And then she's like, have you had your pink drink today? And then they go, what's a pink drink? And she's like, I'm so glad you asked. And then she can either give them a sample or a card and start a conversation with them. So I just thought that was like a cute little way to to just throw out a question there. But she was talking about recruiting things, and her favorite question to ask people was, have you done direct sales before? Which I personally haven't really specifically asked people that. And when I was kind of, preparing for this call and researching this stuff, and I was like, that's a really great way to ask it. Just, have you done direct sales before? Because people are going to tell you most likely yes, because like, I think it's 90% or something. I mean, so many people have been a part of direct sales at one point or another in their life. And they've usually got some pretty strong feelings about it, right? And a lot of times they're like, oh, nope, had a bad experience, right? How many times have we run into that? I had a bad experience. Everybody I know, it seems like, has had a bad experience somewhere, some way. So we want to ask them questions. What did you like about it? And maybe they liked their products, and so they just talked about them. Maybe they, liked the community. Maybe they liked their team. Who knows? Those are good things to know, but what you really, really, really want to listen to is, what didn't you like about it? What did you not find fulfilling? What did you not like? What were you unhappy with so that you didn't want to continue? And then take notes or write those things down, like make notes for yourself so you know what it is that they were looking for, because those are the reasons that they're going to not want to join. Those are the reasons that they're not going to want to jump in and be like, oh my gosh, Plexus is the best thing ever, because they're jaded from something else. So take the notes on that. And, maybe their thing was, I never really made more than I spent. That was me. I was jaded from that because I spent a lot of money, and it was, I had to have inventory and had to hold parties and all the things. And maybe they don't want to do those things. I didn't want to do those things. And so then you would use like the feel, felt, found method. So if you guys are familiar with that, it's awesome. If you're not, you want to relate to how they feel, explain how that you have felt the same way, or that, maybe your friend has. If you haven't, like, you definitely don't want to make things up, but feel, felt. And then what I found was, so like, let's say it was I've never made more than I spent, or I spent way too much money on all this inventory stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I know exactly how you feel, because I felt that same way when I was doing another company a long time ago, and I had to have all this inventory and I spent way more than I ever made. And it was really frustrating. But what I found is that with Plexus, we don't have inventory. So I never had to worry about that. And I'm only spending what I want to spend on my own supplements that I was spending anyway on supplements and taking care of myself. And then I make more money. So that, I found that really wasn't an issue here. And you're basically listening for what their fears are, what they're concerned about. And you can ask them, why do you feel like you weren't successful before? Those things like really make people think. When you ask people, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, why do they think they would be successful? Why do they think they weren't successful before? What did you like about the whole experience? And continue to talk to them about, what are their financial goals? What are their health goals? All of those things, because when you get people talking about what you can do to help them and talking about their scenario, and you're just listening, it opens up the door to solve problems for them in so many areas of their life. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about Plexus, is that we get to help people just live life to the fullest in all avenues. And the best way we can do it is asking good questions and just being a good listener. So I want to challenge you guys to reach out to someone within the next 2 days about the business and practice asking some of these questions. Have you ever been in direct sales before? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And see if that conversation feels different to you than when you just say, hey, have you ever thought about making some extra cash? Which sometimes that's a good thing to do, but you just never know with people. And so I love that have you ever done direct sales before? I thought that was a really cool one. So anyway, that's my challenge, to reach out to someone about the business, ask that question, see what's going on. I'm going to read this chat real quick. I know we only have a couple minutes left. Yay, Christy, someone in mind to reach out to about the business. That's awesome. Do y'all have any questions before I stop recording? No, Sally loves that approach. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.